Welcome back to Toyworks. Today we're talking about Protectobots. Not the G1 Protectobots, but the Combiner War Technobots, or Protectobots that came out in 2015. You can see right now we have the 5 main Protectobots. We have Blade, Streetwise, Groove, Hotspot, and First Aid. Something particular about the Protectobots is that they're one of those 1986 Transformers that showed up in the G1 cartoon during the 2nd season. And this is of course before the 1986 Transformers, the movie. A lot of people noticed that they were not included in the movie, but in Japan they had a special episode called Transformers Scramble City, and they were prominently featured in that. We're going to talk about each of the individual limbots as well as the torsobots throughout this review. So let's begin with Blades. Blades, of course, is one of the main Protectobot members. He transforms into a rescue helicopter. So right now, what we're going to do is we're going to have him in arm mode, and then we're going to connect everyone together into the Defensor. So as you can see, we have Blades configured in his arm mode. The only thing that needs to be done now is to attach the fist onto him. So even though all the fists are more or less interchangeable, he does come with one that's specially for him, the one that came with him in packaging. So as you can see, Kaful, he's going to be helping me out today with showing everybody what Combiner War Defensor looks like. He's going to put the fist onto Blades so he can become one of the arms when you combine him into the Defensor. So this is what he looks like when you attach the machine gun accessory with the thumb sticking out of the machine gun and the finger sticking out to form the fist. So right now, he forms the right arm of the Defensor. Moving on to the next arm. We have Streetwise. Streetwise, we're going to make him into an arm. As you can see right now, he's a leg. But very much like any other Combiner War robot, limb robots, they're easily changed into an arm by merely reconfiguring the leg transformation. So Kaful is going to unfold the legs like that. And once he does that, he's going to combine the legs together, very much like how you see Blades is configured. So once he gets the legs back into place, he's going to swing out the post, which will accept the fist, like that. And then he's going to click onto the bottom panels, and that's going to form the basis of the lower arm or the forearm. And then all now he has to do is, very much like Blades, put the machine gun piece, configure it into the hand of Defensor. In this case, it's going to be the left hand. And he's going to attach it to that post on Streetwise. So even though the fists, they all look the same, if you look carefully, they're molded differently, and they all have different weapon ports, the weapon parts on their back. So no two robots have the same weaponry. And of course, there's going to be a post that's formed from the chest of each limb robot that swings down and will connect to the main torso later. So that's it for Streetwise. He forms the left arm in our video here. Next, we're going to grab another limbot. In this case, it's going to be First Aid. So in preparation for this video, we did the preparation to make First Aid into a leg. And in this case, it's very easy. All we did was we took him in ambulance mode, swing up the hood, reconfigured the fist, the weapon accessory into a foot accessory. So as you can see on the bottom of each foot, the fingers tuck inside the machine gun, and then the thumb, what it does is it actually stretches out and forms a heel spur. It gives it that stability when you stand them up in robot mode. So That's all you have to do when it comes to transforming the leg or the robot into a leg. So you can just stand him up and you'll see that he just stands up perfectly. Next, we're going to move on to Groove. There's a little history behind Groove here. When Combiner Wars first came out, Groove was not part of the team. Instead, you have a robot named Rook that transformed into a SWAT armored vehicle. Of course, a lot of G1 Transformers fans did not like that because the original Protectobots came with Groove, not Rook. But then we have a problem because with Groove, even back in G1, he's relatively small and he's a special mode because at this point, there are no motorcycle modes for Combiner Wars. Whereas all the other past robot modes that you've seen so far, they're remoted from other existing robots that are sold during that time. I'll give you an example. Blades is pretty much a redeco of Alpha Bravo. Alpha Bravo was part of the Superion team. Streetwise is basically one of the remodes of the Stunticons. In this case, it was Dead End. Dead End was remoted with a few extra decos, a few extra scopes to make him into Streetwise, the police car. And then of course you have First Aid. First Aid was originally off-road, which was part of the Stunticon team, and then later on he was remoted into a van mode or a truck mode, into Ironhide, and then with a few minor redecos, he was remade into First Aid, who's now an ambulance. But then going back to Groove, Groove had no such pre-modes. He was, or he is, what you see in front of you. He's a brand new mode for this team, and he came a little bit later after Rook was released. Now, Rook was also kind of like a first mode of his kind for him, but then Rook was taken later to be remoted to other figures like Swindle and Hound. So with Groove, very much like what we did with First Aid, you transform him into vehicle mode first. In his case, is a motorcycle. Swing out the front end, put it into the back, and all you have to do now is just attach the machine gun accessory, very much like what you did with the other 3 robots, and configure that accessory into a foot, very much like what we just did with First Aid. So once you have him set up, all you have to do is just put him down, and he stands by himself quite well. What we're going to do now is we're going to combine all 5 into one robot. And we're going to talk about the torso quickly here. The torso is formed by Hotspot. Hotspot is a fire engine. And what you see here is we transform him into robot mode, and then we took a few extra steps to make him into the torso. You notice 2 things right there. He has a chest that locks every part of the loose pieces together, like his arms, the legs and whatnot, so that it doesn't move and wiggle around in Combiner mode. And he also has these ports around him in his leg and in his arms. So each of these ports will take one robot that's going to make him into the Combiner giant. Last but not least, when you look at his head, the head is a completely new sculpt. But as part of the transformation, you can actually lift the head and open it up a bit so that you can carry like a little Diaclone figure inside him. So if you look at him a little closely, he has painted eyes, he has a sculpted face, and most of all, his chest is pretty detailed. There's like some pre-colored tampograph prints on his chest to give him a little, I guess, accent details on his chest. And of course, the ladder bucket forms the remainder of his chest, which locks everything in place. There was a Groove little robot that forms an extra piece, like an extra shield piece for him. But in this case, we're just going to stick with the chest that comes with Hotspot. So this is what he looks like as a Combiner torso. Now we're going to combine them together. We're going to first combine the robots to form the legs. It doesn't matter which way. It's just a matter of preference. So we're going to put Groove into the left leg. And all you have to do is just slide that post into Hotspot's left leg and it locks in place. We're going to do the same for first aid. Just slide the post into the groove or into the slot, and he stays in place. And this is what you get when you lock the two smaller robots onto hotspot. Now, the good thing about this is he does have somewhat of a knee joint. As you can see, when you bend groove at the post, there is some points of articulation. And just to cheat a little bit, because hotspot does not have a waist joint, you can pivot the post connector on groove to make the leg swiveled a little bit to the left or a little bit to the right. Like so. So there's that extra point of articulation. So let's stand them back up. And as you can see, it's pretty sturdy, and you can hear the ratchets because all combiner robots, the post has a very tight ratchet to it. So you can actually pose them somewhat. Now we're going to move on to the arms. Let's connect blades onto his right hand or the right arm. And he has the same mechanism as the legs. You just slide the post into the slot, and it locks in place. We'll do Streetwise. Streetwise is the same. You slot them in, put them in there, and there you have it. You have a Defensor. So as you can see, Defensor is a large robot compared to the robots offered during the time. Every Combiner War robots creates a large robot like Defensor. His contemporaries during this time are Superion, Minosaur, and a little later on, Bruticus. Bruticus has a very similar engineering design, where that you have Onslaught, that's a redeco of Hotspot. You have Vortex, that is a redeco of Blades. And then if you count Rook into the mix, Swindle was a redeco of Rook. And of course, for those of you who know about Bruticus during this era, Brawl was a completely new robot, very much like Groove. And Blastoff was a redeco of Fireflight from the aerial bots, the Combiner War aerial bots. So if you look at the 5 robots here, you'll notice they all have like their details. You can fit their weapons onto them without having any troubles. If you look at Groove, he has 2 of his little guns still attached to him. You can do that with all the limb bots for Defensor. When you look at the back of Defensor, you'll see that unlike G1 Defensor, the ladder does not hang off the back. Because in this case, the ladder forms the locking mechanism for the chest piece. What happens is that the chest piece is locked in place by the ladder because the ladder kind of wraps around the head. Let's give us a second to fix this here. There we go. Okay. But you can also see that each robot, they're pretty much very much like the G1 incarnation. They're kind of there standing there, supporting the weight, while the connectors is what gives that point where everybody just kind of like merge into one robot. There is some articulation to his arms as well. So if you kind of like move his arms, Kaful, yeah, you can pivot forward, backwards. Yep. You can kind of move them from side to side as well. Yeah, here we go. Just give it a second. Just lock that back in place. There you go. Yep. And you can move the arms side to side as well. They all take advantage of the joints that comes with the individual robots themselves. The head moves from side to side. But unlike the previous video where we show Optimus Maximus, he doesn't really look up because the head joint, the ball joint, is on a very limited swivel. So while he can look up slightly, it's not enough to count as a meaningful articulation point. So now we're gonna show you how each one of these robots, each one of these limb bots can become another limb. What we can do is we're gonna make Streetwise into a leg, and we're gonna swap it with first aid. So we'll take Streetwise out first. and we'll convert him into a leg bot, while at the same time we'll take out first aid, and then we'll put him into like an arm mode. So let's start with Streetwise. We'll just wait until Kafu gets ready. One good thing about Streetwise is that he's very versatile, like as a vehicle, like a car, like a police car. He can blend in with a lot of the other sets. Unlike the other vehicles, he is more or less to scale with the other Combiner War robots. Streetwise for the Protectobot team, he's very much like Jazz. He's very into Earth culture, very good with following people and following his query. And at the same time, he has a photographic memory according to Transformers Wiki, where he can just look at a map and knows exactly where he's going without even actually going to the place before. So Kafu now has transformed Streetwise into the leg mode, and he can replace that with first aid. And you'll notice one thing, when you transform any of these vehicles into any of the limbs, the height is the same as the other, as the robot that you replace. So there's no like leaning towards one side just because first aid is a larger robot and Streetwise is kind of stubbier. They're all engineered so that you can combine them in any combination you choose. Now, we're gonna transform first aid into an arm mode. And very much like Streetwise, all you have to do is just do a little bit of massaging of the parts. In this case, you bring out the robot legs on both sides. And of course, what that does is that it frees up the robot waist, which doubles as the elbow joint of the Gestalt robot. So as you can tell, or as you can see right now, Kafu made the legs out, but the arms are in a way. So unlike Streetwise, you can't just fold them up and just leave them out. So in this case, you have to get the arms out of the way so that he can pivot. He can swing out the arms in his Combiner robot mode. So once he has that, he swings down a post, the chest post, that forms the connection point. And of course, he would have to connect the fist accessory, which was the foot in the previous mode. And very much like what we did with Groove, you can just take the piece out. Sorry, not Groove, Streetwise. You can take the fist and then connect them into the robot, and then you can connect the robot himself onto the main torso robot. Like that. So right now, this is actually the, if you're the follower of the G1, I guess, continuity, this is how he looks like back then. You have Blades and First Aid forming the arms, with Groove and Streetwise forming the legs. And in this case, you can see First Aid is now the arm. He has the same articulation as Streetwise when he's the arms, because you can swing First Aid forward and backwards. The arms, yeah, you can swing him in the shoulders as well. There's shoulder articulations. And as you can tell, he's very stable in this mode. The Fencer also has a weapon for him, which is made up of the two guns that came with Hotspot. Now you can either have them as two separate weapons, one on each arm or one in each fist, or just combine them, like what Kafu had done before, into one massive weapon. And then in this case, you can put the weapon in either one of his hands, and it just stays put that way. Or in this case, you can put it in the forearm, very much like how Megatron has his fusion cannon, and that forms a long-range rifle for him. Right now, we're going to do a quick transform of each of the Limbot into their vehicle modes. So let's begin with First Aid. Like any other of the Limbots, all you have to do is transform them back into an ambulance mode by collapsing the legs. And the legs are not like the G1 where you just swing them back into position. you have to open them up like a clamshell, collapse them, and then once they're collapsed, you can kind of set them into the rear of the vehicle mode that way. The good thing about these robots is that even after a decade, they're still very tight. The engineering on these robots are fairly precise, but because most of us, when we buy these robots, we keep them in combiner mode, so a lot of them are kind of like, well, more or less well taken care of. They're meant as display pieces, even though they are meant to be played with. There we go. Yeah. Now they are meant to pop off. So you'll notice that for first aid, there is no pin connector for his arm. So when you do pop him off, it doesn't break. Yep. And then I'll collapse his chest, or collapse his legs into his chest. You got to set him up like so. Yeah, perfect. And then the other leg, and then collapse them. Okay, so that's his robot mode. Now we'll transform him into an ambulance. And again, as you can see, there is some precision and some tolerances when it comes to transforming them properly. You'll notice that there are a lot of tabs in the combiner mode robots, and that's because you do need them to transform in certain ways for them to lock into place. That pin, that leg needs to be flush. So when you do transform, you collapse them like that. There we go. And then that's where you have to close them. Like that. And then the arm goes on the sides. It is tight, so take your time when you do have yours. And that also lines flush with the side of the vehicle. Okay. So once you have all that lined up, it's just a matter of making sure all the panels fit before you swing down the hood, the front of the car, and lock that in place. And again, very much like the other parts of the robot, it needs to be aligned so that when you hear that click sound, you know that you got it all together. Now that everything's locked in place, you should get an ambulance mode that first aid transforms into. Now, you might wonder, what happens to the fist accessory? The fist accessory themselves, they're supposedly weapons. So you can actually fit them on a top. So there should be a groove on that fist piece. And then as you can see, that piece now becomes a roof-mounted gun battery. So you can see there's like barrels on the front of the accessory that forms the guns. That's first aid for you. This is a homage to the G1 Transformers, where they came with weapons that they can use for their vehicle modes, except in this case, they reused that one accessory as a gun for the vehicle mode. You can use that as a gun for the robot mode. And of course, it becomes a fist or a foot, depending on what you choose, for the Defensor's super robot mode. So we'll do the same for each of these limbots quickly here. So from where we'll put down first aid, and let's do Groove, the motorcycle. So as we said before, Groove came in a little later. He was actually not originally part of the Defensor Protectobot team. It was Rook. But after a lot of clamoring from the fans and a lot of people asking why do we not have Groove, he was released much later with a new mode to reflect his image or how he looked like in G1. So Groove is a little different because as a motorcycle, he's a lot bigger than the other teammates here in proportion. You'll see that when you transform him, he more or less has the same transformation scheme as his teammates. The only difference is that he does have some changes or some differences in his vehicle mode because of the two wheels in his motorcycle mode. So the wheels, they split up like so. so that when he becomes a robot, the leg, the rear part of the motorcycle, it accommodates for that articulation for his lower body. It is a little tight because the wheels are locked by two separate tabs, and then the legs are locked together by the post and the port. So very much like First Aid and what you seen earlier with Streetwise, the legs do collapse so that you can extend them or retract them. And right now, as we can see, Kafu is lining them up so that the legs are now shown in his robot mode. And then all you have to do now is just swing the pig over to show his robot head. And you'll notice that unlike the other limbots, he has light piping on the back of his head. If you shine a light behind the back, it should show up in the front. So it looks like his eyes are glowing. So last but not least, Kafu is gonna lock the front of the motorcycle so that the robot mode is now finished. So that's what he looks like as a robot mode. You can put the weapons on him. It goes on him pretty tightly. And unlike the G1 robot, he only has his vaporizer cannons. He doesn't have his photon gun, which blinds his enemies. So in a way, he kind of still has an offensive weapon, but he's no longer a pacifist per se. So now we're going to transform Groove into his motorcycle mode just to show you how he looks like. And just to show you the proportion of his motorcycle is much bigger than the other Protectobots. So Kafu is going to reverse the process where he transforms Groove into a robot. And again, there's a lot of collapsing. Yep, and then open up the clamshell legs. Again, there's a lot of alignment that you gotta make sure that it lines up. Yes. Okay, and then the wheels, they come together. Okay, and then the arms forms the engine. You have to turn them around. The waist has to be turned around. Now, very much like his fellow Protectobots, he has a lot of details on the both motorcycle mode and his robot mode. So everything locks in place. And then when it locks in place, you can kind of stand them up. Now the arms does fold together to form the engine block. You might have to do a little twisting there. Yep. And then fold it up. So the arm kind of have to go inside out, like it swings inside out. And then locks his forearm into place to form the motorcycle engine. Now you'll see that there's a little kickstand that comes out of his left arm. So that in motorcycle mode, he can stand up just like any other regular bike. So now it's just a matter of swinging the front of the bike into position, and there you have it. You have Groove. Now you'll notice that compared to First Aid, he is humongous when you look at a motorcycle. In real life, he's supposed to be like 1/4 the size he is compared to an ambulance. But of course, in Transformers universe, we have the idea of mass shifting. So for the sake of simplicity, the fans just pretend that he's in his regular size. Now, very much like the other limbots, you can attach the fist accessory onto him in any direction or in any position and configuration. But in this case, it kind of looks silly. I mean, I'm not saying that a large motorcycle doesn't look silly, but that's what the fist and foot accessory becomes. So we'll put him right next to First Aid just to give you an idea of what the size looks like. Like that. So he's a humongous motorcycle. Next, we'll move on to Streetwise. Now the leg bots are relatively simple because for most of them, they're already in their vehicle modes when you transform them. So for Streetwise to become his vehicle, like his police car mode, all you have to do is just swing in his hood piece. Now you gotta be careful here because the hood piece is quite tight. Swing in the connector post, bring down the hood piece, lock it in place, and there you have it. There's Streetwise in this vehicle mode. Again, very much like the other two, you can connect his fist or foot piece and make it into a gun piece. So he becomes an attack vehicle. So as you can see, that's Streetwise in his hot pursuit mode. Last but not least, we have Blades. Blades, very much like the other Combiner War robots that forms the arm, you have to transform him into a robot first before you transform him into an arm. So in this case, Kafuo is gonna turn the helicopter mode, turn him back into a helicopter mode. Keep in mind everything clicks in place. You don't break him when you snap him in place. Okay, and then very much like First Aid and Streetwise, the clamshell legs would allow you to retract the legs back in, and they do line up. And keep in mind, when they do lock up, when they do combine or go back into place and you have all the tabs and slots put in right, they are very tight and they don't fall apart. A lot of the newer bots, a lot of newer toys nowadays, the QC it's somewhat of a roulette, but nowadays, because of the design specs are a little different, they're kind of a hit and miss. But back then, they're pretty consistent. What you get is what you see is what you get. So you'll see Kafu is trying to get the tab back out so he can turn it back into a helicopter mode. Yep, just have to swing up that one tab. Okay, there you go. Yep. Yep, there you go. Bring out the tail. Yep. Lock it in place, and then lock the foot back in. You notice that unlike the G1 Blades in his helicopter mode, this version of Blades does not have any landing gear. There's no skids. You just sit him on the belly. So he just kind of sit flat on the smooth side of the robot underneath, which is now the helicopter bottom. Okay, and then swing out the helicopter tail and then positioning upright. And then kind of fidget, make sure everything's locking in place. And there you have it. You have Protectobot Blades. Now you do still have his fist weapon or the fist foot weapon piece. In this case, there's only one place for this piece to go in his helicopter mode, which is the bottom. So in this case, that actually forms his landing gear, but it also serves as his gun pod, so he can fly around with a machine gun tied to the bottom of his belly. Perfect. So now we're going to go on to Hotspot, the final member. Hotspot takes a little bit more to bring him back into a robot, so Kafu is going to transform him back into a robot. First, he's going to have to unlock the headpiece, which is part of the ladder, the ladder configuration. Okay, now he's going to swing the ladder around, and that frees up the head. So the head now is on the back of the ladder, in the front of the ladder. Okay, and then tuck in the chest pieces, and then that's it for Defensor's head. Now he's going to transform him into Hotspot, which from this point is quite easy. Straighten out the legs. Yeah, and then bring the legs out like so. Make sure they lock in place. Swing the legs around at the knee joint. That forms Hotspot's legs. And then straighten out the arms, which is now tucked in. You can see his forearms and fists now. Straighten out the ladder in the back so that it doesn't get in the way. And it is a little tricky because it is meant to be flexible at certain points so that it forms Defensor's head. There you go. Now it locks in place. And bring out the other arm and then open up the chest, flip out Hotspot's head, and close the chest. There you go. Now you have Hotspot. Now, unlike the smaller robots, he does not come with a fist, foot, machine gun accessory. He does come with the 2 rifles that Defensor was using, as you saw earlier in the video. So you do separate them so that each of his hands gets a weapon, very much like the G1 version. And now you have Hotspot in his robot mode. And then to transform Hotspot into his vehicle mode, you would have to take out his weapons. And then, and then put the panels back on the slot to cover up the slots, like so. And then you can tuck in his head and seal it. And then now just do the rest to convert him into a fire engine. So you'll notice that his arms, the back of his arms, looks like there's some paneling to it. And the reason for this is Hotspot is actually a pre-tool for Combiner Wars Onslaught. So the back of Onslaught is actually the front of Hotspot and vice versa. So when you put Hotspot in his fire engine mode, like that, that's actually, what you're looking at there is actually Onslaught's front. So if you look at the back of Hotspot's truck mode, that's what he becomes. Now for the legs, Kung-Fu is gonna collapse them so that they become the front of the fire engine. And you'll notice now the kneecaps now become the sirens for the fire engine. And then you just have to swing down the cab, which forms a foot. Yeah, you gotta lock it in place first. There are actually 2 tabs on his waist area that you have to align with. Otherwise, it doesn't lock in place. And then now you swing down the cabin, the fire engine cabin. Okay. And then the head of Defensor now becomes the bucket, the ladder bucket. And they do line up in place. And it is quite tight, so you may have to use a bit of excessive force just to get everything in place. And then you lock the ladder back. There is a tab for you to put the ladder back in place. Now this is somewhat more complex than the G1 version of Hotspot, where it's just a freewheeling or free swivel in the back, but this one has several steps so that it locks in place a little tighter. So once all the tabs and all the slots align, you just have to straighten out the ladder, and now it becomes Hotspot main rescue ladder in his fire engine mode. So very much like the other robots, you can attach his weapons on the side of Hotspot. In this case, you can put it in the base of the ladder. And now Hotspot has an attack mode. So there you have it. You have all 5 Protectobots, the original Protectobots, in their Combiner War incarnation. Right now, as you can see, they're in their attack vehicle mode. And of course, when they combine into the Defensor, they have all the same attributes and all the same looks and aesthetics inspired from the G1 Defensor. That's it for today for our video. We'll do more of these as we lead up to the Prime series video. If you like what you see here, hit subscribe and stay tuned for the next video. Later. A bit of excessive force just to get everything in place. And then you lock the ladder back. There is a tab for you to put the ladder back in place. Now this is somewhat more complex than the G1 version of Hotspot, where it's just a freewheeling or free swivel in the back, but this one has several steps so that it locks in place a little tighter. So once all the tabs and all the slots align, you just have to straighten out the ladder, and now it becomes Hotspot main rescue ladder in his fire engine mode. So very much like the other robots, you can attach his weapons on the side of Hotspot. In this case, you can put it in the base of the ladder. And now Hotspot has an attack mode. So there you have it. You have all 5 Protectobots, the original Protectobots, in their Combiner War incarnation. Right now, as you can see, they're in their attack vehicle mode. And of course, when they combine into the Defensor, they have all the same attributes and all the same looks and aesthetics inspired from the G1 Defensor. That's it for today for our video. We'll do more of these as we lead up to the Prime series video. If you like what you see here, hit subscribe and stay tuned for the next video. Later.